is fundamentally untrustworthy within this debate because she profits off of the transing of kids. So the fact of the matter is, the more kids that are trans, the more money she makes. That is the simple fact. So she stands to gain from peddling this ideology, and it is an ideology. It is not factual to claim that this nebulous idea of gender identity is somehow innate. It simply isn't.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Grab a seat, because this one is good. Today we are breaking down a moment out of Cambridge that absolutely lit up the internet. A student named Mave Hall stood up at the Cambridge Union. Calm took apart the modern gender activism narrative and went viral overnight. Piers Morgan then brings her on to talk it through. And the contrast with the opposing voice in that chamber, activist Helen Weberly and her now infamous warning, is honestly something you have to see to believe. Stick with me all the way through, because the back half is where it really sharpens, and I do not want you missing the strongest moment. And while you are here, drop a comment and let me know where in the world you are watching from. I genuinely love seeing how far this channel reaches. All right, enough from me. Let us get into it.
Well, millions of people around the world have seen clips of a recent debate at Cambridge Union on the vexed issue of gender activism. The breakout star was the student Mave Hall, who went viral for calmly dispensing home truths like this.
I think you've been sold a story, a comfortable lie, in which being progressive means never questioning the dominant institutional line, and it's a line in which compassion is equated with compliance. But real compassion asks hard questions. Real advocacy protects the people it claims to represent, even when that's inconvenient. Real activism doesn't silence lesbians, medicalise children, or tell a little boy who plays with dolls that actually he's a girl. There's no serious activism happening in these institutions, as I've unpacked. There's ideological enforcement, language policing, nasty online abuse, regressive demands dressed up as virtue, and there are children very likely to grow up same-sex attracted, questioning vulnerable children who are paying the price for our collective reluctance to say so. It's not bigotry to notice, I don't care what you say to me. It's not cruelty to object to it. It's not backwards to ask who exactly modern LGBTQ+ activism is for. Be brave. Let yourself question the narrative that you're being fed. Don't tell me to be kind if being kind involves lying to and medicalising kids, betraying lesbian and gay people, rolling back women's hard-fought-for rights, and hurling threat at those who object. Again, hatred, you talk about it. Try being a woman who knows what one of those are. I'll tell you about hatred. No, I don't subscribe to this kindness, and I'll tell the truth instead.
Well, Mave Hall joins me now. First of all, absolutely brilliant.
Thanks.
That was badass. Were you surprised about the reaction when it blew up online?
I think to an extent, yeah, because, you know, I think we all know that this debate, such as it is, has been going on for a really, really long time, and there have been some really amazing men, women, organisations that they've set up and are part of that have been saying the kind of things that I said in that speech on Thursday at the Union. I think I'm really pleased that it was sort of picked up online, because I think it's important to see that young people, students especially, are saying this, because a lot of the time people are pretty, you know, they're worried about the state of our higher education institutions. They're worried about our young people, especially women, because we know that there are a lot of women who are pushing left, politically speaking, I'd say some of them quite radically. So the fact that there's a young woman, you know, saying, pointing out what the problem is here and saying, this is what I believe, and normalising it being said. So I'm pleased that it was picked up online.
In your speech, you also talked about the abuse you've received campaigning for women's rights. You talked about being shouted at in the street, dubbed a fascist, spat at, insulted for how you look, even receiving rape and death threats online. What's happened since your speech went viral? Has that got worse? Have you had, on the converse, a lot of people coming to support you? How have you found the reaction?
The reaction has been overwhelmingly positive, extremely positive. And some of that has come from, you know, people who, you know, have been part of this for a very long time, have followed the gender debate, again, for quite a long time. But there are a lot of people who have sent me messages and stuff saying, I've never really heard about this, and now hearing you say that, you know, I think some people, one person told me it's made her wake up. And that's something that I'm really pleased about, the fact that it broke out of the barriers just surrounding the debate to people who maybe either didn't know or didn't quite understand what was going on before through no fault of their own. It's a murky debate to get involved.
You know, it's funny you use the phrase wake up, because I wrote a book called Wake Up 4 years ago, warning about a number of things, but in particular what was potentially going to happen on campuses. And then I wrote one called Woke is Dead last year. And I made the point, I don't think it's actually over, but I feel like the worm is turning. And when I watched your speech and when I saw the reaction to it, I did feel, yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. People are no longer prepared to just accept the status quo is going to be all this, frankly, this bullshit. They're going to stand up. They're going to use facts as their main weapon. And they're going to say, actually, I'm entitled to my opinion as much as you are to yours. And that's why I loved what you did and why I felt it was so courageous.
You want to know why this one clip traveled around the entire planet? It is not because Mave Hall screamed. It is because she did the opposite. She sat there calm, measured, almost bored, and took apart an idea that most people her age are terrified to even poke at. And that is the part that should make these institutions nervous. Here is what gets me. When Mave said compassion has been turned into compliance, she put her finger on the whole trick. Because for years, the message to young people has been simple. Agree, or you are a bad person. Not wrong. Bad. And once you frame disagreement as cruelty, you never have to win the argument again. You just have to shame the other side into silence. And that stopped being advocacy a long time ago. It is just crowd control now. You also have to understand why a student saying this hits harder than a politician saying it. Universities were supposed to be the one place on earth where you are allowed to ask the uncomfortable question. So when Mave told that room to question the narrative they are being fed, she was really just reminding everyone what a university is FR. The fact that this felt rebellious instead of normal tells you exactly how far things slipped. Piers Morgan said he feels like the worm is turning, and watching the reaction to this clip, I think he is right. People are worn out from being told what they are permitted to think. The mood has shifted, and once that fear cracks even a little, it does not snap back.
What was the reaction from fellow students?
So, again, there are a lot of students. I mean, immediately after the debate in the union, some students came up to me and said that they agreed and thanked me for saying it, thanked me for saying what they themselves know to be true, but as you said, is scary to declare publicly. There have been some other students, including those who were in the chamber, one of whom was speaking in opposition, so speaking against me, who were very frustrated by the fact that somebody decided to stand up and say it and to normalise it. But as I say, overwhelmingly, the reaction has been really, really positive.
Well, I think you're talking about Dr. Helen Weberly, who was on the opposite side of the debate. And she's actually used the phrase that blood would be dripping down the hands of those who disagreed with her.
For the last decade, I have worked exclusively with transgender people. And I am a very, very proud modern-day activist. I would like to apologise to any transgender person who is in this room or who may be listening on social media later. Gender identity is something innate within you. It is not something that is a disorder. If your gender identity is different to the sex that you were assigned at birth, there is nothing wrong with you. It is not a disorder. It is not a mental illness, and you are not broken. I most strongly oppose the motion that's been proposed tonight, and I feel that anybody who does agree and go along and approve that motion will, and raise their hands to that, will have blood dripping down their hands in years to come.
I mean, extraordinary words from her there. And also weaponising this thing that if you don't agree with her and her view, intransigent view of this, obviously you're transphobic, you hate trans people.
Well, look, in the speech, I said that these days, especially among the young and especially among young women, I'll say again, compassion is equated with compliance. So go along with this, or you are a bad person, you're unkind. Firstly, I'd just like to say I don't think it's kind to lie to children. I don't think it's kind to lie to anyone that you can change your sex. I don't think it's kind to the women who suffer directly as a result, i.e. having their single-sex spaces invaded by men. I don't think it's kind to LGBT people. I unpacked all of this in the speech. What I would say, though, is that Helen Weberly is fundamentally untrustworthy within this debate because she profits off of the transing of kids. So the fact of the matter is, the more kids that are trans, the more money she makes. That is the simple fact. So she stands to gain from peddling this ideology, and it is an ideology. It is not factual to claim that this nebulous idea of gender identity is somehow innate. It simply isn't. The science and also the law follow the reality that there are two sexes, there are male and female, and you can talk about chromosomes, you can talk about everything. Everybody knows that there are two sexes and everybody knows that that matters, but people have been scared into silence, especially in institutions, and that has rippled out so destructively in society, in healthcare services, in schools, again, in the LGBT community. it is damaging things when you start peddling a lie as truth and then trying to obliterate somebody who goes against it by calling them immoral. It's an extremely dangerous thing to be doing. I do not trust her.
Now this is where it turns serious. Because the other side handed us a line I genuinely could not believe an adult said out loud. Helen Weberly told that room that anyone who voted the wrong way would have blood dripping down their hands in years to come. Sit with that. That is not an argument. That is a threat dressed up as concern. When you cannot win on the facts, you reach for the most apocalyptic language you can find, because fear shuts down thinking faster than anything else. And here is what people miss. This is the exact tactic Mave warned about minutes earlier. Comply or the deaths are on you. No middle ground, no questioning, just guilt. And Mave did not flinch. She raised the one question nobody is supposed to raise, which is whether the loudest voices in this fight have something to gain from it. That is a fair question. We ask about every other industry on the planet. We ask who profits, who benefits, who has skin in the game. Yet here suddenly, asking is forbidden. Why is that? Then she said the thing that should not even be controversial. Mave pointed out that everybody knows there are two sexes, and everybody knows it matters. Calling that hatred is absurd. It is just biology that humans understood long before any of us were born. And when she landed on the words, "I do not trust her," it did not come off as bitter. It came off like someone who is simply done pretending.
No, I completely agree with you. Also, the language she used, just so disgusting. Had blood dripping down their hands in years to come. Well, I disagree with you, Dr. Weberly, and I completely agree with Mave Halligan. So I'm quite happy to run the risk of blood dripping down my hands. What are your aspirations when you leave Cambridge? Do you want to be a politician?
I don't know. I mean,
I can see a lot of people voting for somebody like you.
Look, I mean, the trans debate specifically, I don't think I speak just for myself when I say that I'm almost bored of it. I'm really frustrated by it. I think it's massively disingenuous. I think figures like Helen Weberly do not deserve to be platformed at all. I think it distracts from real issues, you know, surrounding women's rights, also LGBT rights. I said in the speech, there are many, many, many countries in the world where to be gay or lesbian is not even legal. Like, the trans thing is such a waste of everybody's time, and it silences people, you know, because you're told that you have to be compliant. I think personally, I'm interested in freedom of speech more generally, and in you know, trying to make up for lost time insofar as freedom of speech has been massively under threat for a long time in the country, but specifically within schools, within universities.
We may be looking for a new Prime Minister.
I don't know.
You probably get more votes than half of the people that are lining up to replace Dharma.
Maybe. Well, maybe I'll take a bit of a rest after leaving Cambridge. It's been difficult. I mean, after setting up the Society of Women with two of my very close friends, it's the only single-sex society at Cambridge, and that has been difficult. Backlash for that has been pretty rough. But I think, to be honest, that's part of why not that many students have bothered sending me their usual hate mail. They know what I believe, and I think now I've really stood up and said it. I didn't surprise any students, let's put it that way.
Well, my wife went to Cambridge University and she'll be cheering you from the rooftops. She would have agreed with everything you said. So thank you, Mave, for coming in.
Thank you.
And more power to your elbow. Keep talking. There'll be elements out there that want to try and silence you now because they'll realise you're a very effective advocate for reality. And my only message to you is just carry on showing the courage.
Thank you.
Stand up to these people.
Thanks.
And you'll find most people will be on your side.
Well, thus far, that's been proven to be the case.
Good for you. Nice to meet you.
And you.
And here is the part I think people are going to remember. Piers Morgan looked straight down the barrel and said he is happy to run the risk of blood, dripping down his own hands. Translation: I am not scared of your guilt trip. That is how you break a fear campaign. You refuse to play it. But the moment that impressed me most was actually the quiet one. Mave said figures like Helen Weberly do not even deserve a platform. And then she said something that surprised me. She called the whole trans debate a waste of everybody's time, something that silences people. Think about how confident you have to say the fight you are winning is itself a distraction. She is arguing the real casualties here are women and gay and lesbian people who got steamrolled while everyone argued in circles. Agree or not, that is a serious point, not a slogan. And let me give you the bigger picture, because this is not a one isolated student being brave. In recent years, the evidence behind medical treatment for struggling young people has been pulled under a microscope. In Britain, a major independent review examined how children were being handled inside gender services and found the science was far shakier than the public had ever been told, and that led to real changes in how those clinics now run. That is not an opinion. That is what happens when people finally stop being scared to ask the question Mave asked. Then she mentioned setting up the only single-sex society at Cambridge and the backlash that came with it. One society, for women. and it caused an uproar. If that does not show you how upside down things became, nothing will. What I take from all of this is simple. The fear is cracking. Young people are watching someone their own age refuse to apologize for saying the obvious, and they are realizing they can do the same. That is how every cultural shift begins, not with a shout, with one calm person who will not lie. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.